we were billed higher than we should have been for a band with no music. and I was and I was like, any band that was supposed to play before the band with no freaking music.
Right.
I feel so bad for it. I was like, put us on first if you're gonna put us on at all.
If you've been itching and scratching, this could be the reason. They're called ankle biters.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I am very excited today to be welcoming on Rachael, vocalist of the brand new band ANKLEBITER that's just making the waves. Rachael, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Absolutely. I should have asked you this just before we started recording, but ANKLEBITER as a band is very, very, very new, and I really fuck with the demo, and I reached out to you. I had to track you down because I couldn't just search your name on Instagram, so I was
I make it
DMing
hard.
Lexi from Space, and they hooked it up. So have you done any other podcasts or interviews of any kind?
We, as a collective band, did one written interview that was a little abysmal.
Gotcha.
But besides that, no.
Why would you say it was abysmal? Too many
The
cooks in the
interview
kitchen?
We were just sent a Google Doc, and with every question, there was just like 4 little like bullet points for us to write in. And I made the mistake of asking, "Can I be a little silly?" And they were like, "Sure." And it just went off the rails, and they literally couldn't print like anything we wrote.
They're like, I don't know how much of this is actually usable. It's funny that you say that though. The first zine that my band was in, we did something that was like on the having the marriage between like serious and funny hardcore things, but then we found out another band that was on that same zine like just went full silly mode, and it was just like the most craziest answers.
I love going full silly mode. I think that's one thing to bring home from ANKLEBITER is that it's full silly all the time. We've never taken ourselves seriously.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be chatting about it. You as a person seem to it's cool because when I get to do research for different guests who come on the show, like, and it's people that don't have like this huge discography behind them or all these years, so I get to kind of like learn a little bit more about their story, and especially with this being, one of the first podcasts you ever done, I'm sure that there's a lot to unpack here. So really excited about having you on the show. Before we get going into some of the music chats, though, it's tradition here to check a couple bevs before we get going. So,
classic.
Guests go first. Tell me what you got.
All right.
For
I've actually got 2 on me, one of which is about done. I just finished this one. I had a bubble tea going on.
Nice.
My favorite local spot. I go there far too much.
Do you want to shout it out?
Yeah, shout out Fruity Yogurt in Princeton, New Jersey. They've taken all my money over the past like 5 years. I walk in, they're like, "All right, I'll get started." Like,
yeah.
And then the new bev is I've got the peach Red Bull that is going to keep me awake.
Great choice. Great choice. I have some peach Red Bull in my fridge right now, and I was tempted to bring it.
Man of taste.
I feel like there was a missed opportunity to have matching Red Bulls for this episode.
Well, listen, the thought is there. We've connected already. And I'm going to whip this bad boy open, so.
Please do. Can I tell you a Red Bull story?
I would love a Red Bull story.
Specifically to the peach Red Bull.
Yes, I would love one.
The last full release that my band did, it was very, like, I'm a big beverage person, hence having this whole point of
Gotta have the bev.
This whole part of the show that's mandatory. There's a couple people that were like, "Do I need to bring something?" It's like, yes. But when we were doing our split, I was like, I want to drink a peach Red Bull anytime that I'm recording guitars. So I can say that the guitars of this record are powered by peach Red Bull. So
that's great.
Yeah. Like, I feel like you can hear it in the recordings that something's just a little, like, just out of control. So
it's a little spicy.
It's a little spicy.
I'm trying to remember what I drank when we recorded the demo. I want to say it was the Monster. That's like the Arnold Palmer flavor.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what powered the demo, but I'm not 100. And I know that they say caffeine's like bad for vocals, but I don't know what I'm doing. So
You do sound like you have caffeine, like an IV bag of caffeine going through your vocals at times. So that
It
checks
was
out.
just one Monster, but
It's
I'm
just
glad
one
it did its
monster.
job. Monster's got more in it than Red Bull. I've done my research, so
Yeah. I'm definitely a little bit more team Red Bull than Monster myself. I think I opened up to energy drinks a little later in life because I was just I don't know. Like some people have asked me like why are you so obsessed with bevs, and I'm just like I
they're
think it just
tasty.
because it's very much an umbrella term for me. Because some people would be like, oh, it's like when I say bev, I mean coffee, water, juice, like craft beer, whatever you want to do. And some people only think it's beer or only think it's coffee. So it's like kind of a funny
You a
thing
big
there.
coffee guy?
Yes, I as the weather's coming up, cold brew is the drink of choice for sure. I feel like second runner up of that is an iced dirty chai with oat milk.
This all sounds like foreign to me. Like I could not tell you what a dirty chai is. I feel like people typically, you are the exception, are either like I'm drinking coffee or I'm drinking energy drinks.
Right.
Because like I'm a child, I can't like internally
Do you
I
like
can't do
tea
the
and some of those things?
um I like tea when it's like not actually tea, like the bubble tea I just showed, or
Sure.
like Arnold Palmer or something. But like if you have me like a hot cup of tea in front of me, I just don't think I
There's
can
no
never
way.
really do hot drinks.
Hmm.
Like I feel like I need to have a cold drink with it.
Hmm.
So I could never do it, but like
So
the
I would
they're gonna
recommend.
kill me.
Are you like anti coffee? As far
I've
as things
tried to
go.
like the flavor. Um, so far it's not for me, but I've also heard people just need to force themselves to drink it until they like it.
Hmm.
So
So okay, here's your homework as far as bevs go for the episode. A dirty chai is essentially a chai tea latte that has a shot of espresso in it. So
okay.
that's what makes it dirty. And so an iced of that at any local coffee spot that's like knows their shit, it's my drink of the summer. It's so good. It's
I'm
like
gonna have to remember that.
if you want like to really hit the ground running with your coffee in the morning, like getting a cold brew, but if you need something that's a little lighter on the caffeine side, that's more middle of the road in my opinion.
I would have never known. I'm learning something new already, and we're like 3 minutes in. So
We're 3 minutes into Bev Talk, which is like not is pretty standard, I would say. The minute that someone gives me a little bit of that, I'll flush it out. Bev wise for me, I'm drinking. So this is something that I've picked up at some local spots here. It's actually made in Canada in Nova Scotia, I'm pretty sure. So that's
okay,
like
I was gonna say that's over my way.
yeah, like way closer to you than it is to me. But the brand's called Vivu, I think. One of
Okay.
those. It's a lightly sparkling mineral water.
That
And
sounds
it's
fancy.
made from pressed tart cherries. And
Oh, look at that.
it's honestly like super, super good. And I like the little 8 ounce glass or can.
I was just about
I
to
should
ask
say.
how big that was.
It's the little like it's like the mini Red Bull size.
I was gonna
So
say,
we
I was
might have the
like,
same size of
I have the
Bev.
big one. I have the
Oh,
12.
you have the big one. I got you.
Yeah, I don't mess around. We've
Ah,
officially hit hour 12 of being awake. So
yes.
now I need to. This is my second one of the day.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, with that, cheers. Very excited to have you on the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, Rachel, before we get into, obviously we're going to talk about the demo that you guys have put out like kind of recently. But any new guests
month.
that I have, is it a month?
A month yesterday.
Damn. Okay. Well, yeah, very, very timely. But any new guests that I have here on the show, I always like to get a little bit of their like hardcore origin story, heavy music origin story, however you want to spin it. So like, tell me about like the very first time that you were hearing some of this more DIY music, guitar music, heavy metal, however you want to spin it.
Okay. So growing up, I have two older siblings, and they're like decently older than me. So I would be like in like early grade school, and they were like graduating high school or like in high school, whatever. And my brother would always drive me around, and he had two records of choice. He was always into heavy music, but he had two records of choice, which were "Selfish Machines" by Pierce the Veil and Homesick by Day to Remember, like classic. And those still records I go back to. If people are gonna yeah, but those are the ones that really stuck out to me. But my brother would always kind of play like heavy stuff in the car, and then my sister's really very close in age to him, so they were kind of always into the same stuff, going to like the late 2000s Warp tours, and I just kind of like observe. So that was always just kind of like in my brain, and I'd have like my couple songs like that in my phone, that my YouTube to MP3, and then I'd and then I guess like maybe like 2013, 2014, I was getting into like pop punk and stuff, which then leads you into like going to see like Neck Deep and like Citizen, and then that'll lead you into like going to see Issues, and then in like their prime in like 2014, and then it'll kind of lead you into like, I'm trying to think of more examples, like 2015, 2016 comes around and I start seeing Knocked Loose, and that's where I kind of like, and that's definitely not like the first hardcore band I listened to, but they're definitely one of the first ones I had seen and still see to this day.
Okay.
So like things like that, like I'd see trying to think of more examples, because that part of my life is kind of a blur at this point. But
well, let's go right back to the very first thing, as far as like the first two CDs that like really laid the groundwork, let's call it, because both bands that hit my radar as I was like growing up as well. How old are you now?
I just turned 21.
Okay, so I'm like almost 10 years older than you. So I'm like
awesome.
Almost I'm 29 now. So there's definitely like when Pierce the Veil was like happening, I like saw that, and like I think there was a time where I was like, yeah, I would like turn this on, and then like shortly after. But A Day to Remember was always a band that like I really gravitated towards. And I think to this day I still think A Day to Remember as a band on their songwriting was just had things so figured out so early on.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what really like, and they were just like actually forcing two worlds of like pop punk and like heavy metal and like breakdowns like together, and fusing that, and like not giving a fuck about who said what about it. Like, it really created like fans who like loved it, and then fans who were like, this is the wackiest shit I've ever heard. I was on the other side where I was like, I think this is really innovative and cool, and again, the songwriting aspect of all of that. But to your point, all those bands had like some kind of connection to the next band, whether that was like you said, a Neck Deep, and then very like Warped Tour era as far as like all those bands that could play that.
Oh yeah, it was always just the Warped Tour pipeline for me until I found local scenes, and then found more bands, started Googling kids t-shirts, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there is definitely an underlying power of like when you're like young and impressionable, and you're looking up and being like, what are these words on this black shirt? And it looks so crazy. And nowadays it's just like, oh yeah, that's the band name or whatever. But going back again to the beginning, it sounded like with your older siblings, you were always like looking up at like, oh, this is what they're doing, so I need to like, that's impressioning on me. When was it like, now this is my thing?
I've got to say, like, when I went into, well, when I was like finishing like elementary school, going into like middle school, and kind of just like the beginning of middle school, like my brother moved out, and I wasn't around my sister very much. I was like, I have to be my own person. I have to find my own interests. So I just steal what I had from them, go and just kind of like, oh, this is in the this is in the same 8 tracks playlist. Yeah, I'm gonna let's look into that. And then and if I liked a song, I just go and I'd like torrent the whole record and just see if I liked everything. And if I didn't, I'm just wasting a lot of space on my phone. And that's how I Oh, I left out a huge part of guitar music. For a long time, Fall Out Boy was my favorite band. So
Which band was?
Fall Out Boy,
Oh,
they were
Fall Out Boy.
huge for me,
Of
huge, and
course.
still are,
Yeah.
honestly.
Did you know that the drummer of Fall Out Boy was supposed to play in an actual hardcore band, and then I think Fall Out Boy's on like Universal or something. They like shut it down because they like own him as a musician.
God.
Someone can fact check me on this, but I heard this through a friend of a friend where it was like he recorded drums for like some like demo, and then it was just like, nope, that's not happening. But that is dope.
They all kind of have their like hardcore roots, which I think is so sick. Like looking back now, hold on. Ooh.
That's all good.
And the craziest thing is that we do have us as Anklebiter have we're like 1 degree away from Andy Hurley, because our bassist's sister like knows him personally.
Oh,
We're trying
really?
so hard. We're trying so hard to hook him up with a shirt. We're like, please get us a picture of him in an Anklebiter shirt. I'm begging.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked yet, but we're trying.
I mean, yeah, like stranger things have happened in the hardcore world for sure, but that's, you know, it's one moment of that happening. So
And I'm just like, one day when,
I'm just opening the door for my dogs.
oh, handsome.
My one dog doesn't like to push doors open, while the other one will like learn how to open them.
Yeah, my dog can open doors too, so I had to lock this one just in case.
Okay, so but going back to what you were saying, I really like what you said as far as like I had to like kind of define who I am and like find my own interests and like establish those and go deeper, because like I think it's a lot of us. Like I'm the oldest of 3, and it was definitely apparent where it was like my older sibling or my young, I look back at like, maybe it's not like, oh, I didn't like poison my brother's brain to like hardcore, early enough. And then he's like, there was like a sliver of that. But I do think that it's like very, I think it's very important to kind of recognize like where in that family dynamic you are, because so many people have come on this podcast and talk about like, oh, it was my older sibling, or it was my dad, or it was my mom, or whatever it is. So I think it's like, it's really cool to see that, but it's also cool to hear that you were like in a maybe instance where you could have just been like, no, I might just go do something else. Like, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this podcast,
Yeah. No, I'm very glad that I took the interest in it that I did, because if not, we'd be in a really weird alternate timeline. So I'm just happy I'm here.
Yeah. So again, like going band to band, as far as the heavy music Spiderweb, you said like Knock Loose was like a band that, like you said, wasn't maybe the first band hardcore band that you listened to, but the one that like really stuck around. And I saw a bunch of videos on your Instagram as I was doing research for this episode of like you doing like guest spots and different things. So there's definitely like a thing where it was like, hey, maybe I just started going to Knock Loose shows, and now it's like, now I'm just friends with like some of these people. So like, is there anything that you want to say on that front as far as like how important that band was and is to you?
I mean, so I always just thought they were like a cool band. Like they were never like my number one favorite band, because I know a lot of people do think that, and that's not me like shitting on them. There just happened to be a band that I've seen like 1,000 times, because they'd come to like in like 2015, 2016, they come to shitty little venues like 15 minutes from my house. And now like I've ended up seeing them so many times with people who like they are their favorite band. So I'm like, oh yeah, like let's go. That now we're just friends, and they're like, oh, you want to do a guest spot? And I'm like, sure. And that guest spot was so well received compared to anything else I had done, that I was like, maybe I could do music. Like I was like, maybe there's I still don't think I performed as well as I did there. But it it was eye-opening for me because I honestly thought it was going to be a shit show. I didn't practice or anything.
Well, yeah, like I would say, I feel like if there was like an actual record of like everyone, the instances where you could practice for something as a guest spot or like a band actually practicing for show, like raise your hand, like everyone listening to this podcast, raise your hand if you have played a show without practicing. I've done that many times. I feel like everyone's guilty of that. But I think that's cool that like it's always a cool reminder for me that this music genre is something that can be like, doesn't need the intense amount of preparation that maybe other places
Yeah, it
have,
just
and
doesn't need to be as polished.
totally.
Like sometimes the imperfections are what you're looking for, or kind of make it, or I don't give it character.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Knock Loose piece because, like, earlier in season 2, Brian came on and we had a great chat, and something that we talked about is that like he was saying that people that came to Knock Loose shows in 2015, 2016, 2017, and are now coming to like the 2021 and 2022 shows, it's like, oh, like now we're just friends. Now these are just people that are like, oh, you were with us like since day one of this band, versus like, jumping off of like the Counting Worms, like Explosion or something like that. So it's cool to hear that, from someone else who's like, yeah, like I am one of those people.
No, it's cool supporting different artist bands for a while, and then they're just like, even if you guys don't talk like that, it's just like they'll see you like, oh, that's my boy. Like I've been seeing you for like 5 years. Like and it's just cool. It's just cool because that's not gonna happen in a lot of other scenes. It's not gonna happen where if you've been following your favorite rapper for like 5 years. I mean, it could, but
yeah, I think it's a little bit different because it's like, it's very eye-opening the first couple hardcore shows you go to that you're like, oh, like the members of these bands are just like walking around the same areas that everyone else is.
Those are just some guys,
Yeah, totally. So I feel like, you mentioned that guest spot was that the seed as far as like, hey, I could maybe do this in a band, or was there something even earlier than that?
I mean, I'd always wanted not like this is like a career, but like because we released a demo a month ago. But
it's not paying the bills quite yet.
Maybe not. I've always wanted some sort of career in music. Like I always wanted to tour with whatever I'm doing. Whatever role I get, I'll be happy with. And I'd always toyed with like, oh, what if I could like play music? And I've tried it, and I love playing music for fun, but like I was like, I don't know if I can write things, like whatever. And then I knew I could yell, scream, whatever you call it, for a while, just because I lose in video games so much, and I would just yell, and I'm like, that kind of sounds like that. And so I was like, I knew it was there.
Right.
I've played music in the car enough to know. And then that's when I was talking to Brian one night. He was like, why I hate doing that part in Serpent's Touch. Why haven't you taken the mic from me? And I'm like, you just say that so casually. He was like, well, can you scream? I'm like, I guess. And then that was like, oh my God, I have to do this in front of people.
Right.
And then when it went well, I was like, And that's when I made just a silly tweet like, haha, like, who wants to play in a band with me? And I actually got people to bite. And I've been making jokes like that for like a while.
Right.
And it was always people like, oh, like when I learn the drums, I'll play for you. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, people with no drum kit, like.
Yeah, like. No, sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh, no. That was me. But yeah, just things like that. Or like, I literally had 3 people that were like, oh, when I learn an instrument, like totally. And I'm like, that's.
Right.
Like, what kind of contribution is that? Like, it's nice, but I'm like, what?
Right. I think the thing that I want to add there is like, I just did an interview with my my good friend Luca, who runs a group of like promotion for gigs up in Vancouver, and they're called Here and Now Promotions. And like, he's like, as corny as it sounds, like I believe that like what we're doing is very like, this is hardcore here and now, not like the future of like 2030 hardcore or like the past. And while both of those
I like
things are
that.
equally important, like we won't get to that future, nor can we like, keep the legacy of the past if we're not focusing on the present. So,
No, I love that.
and like hardcore has such a don't ask for like permission when it comes to starting something, whether it's like taking photos at shows or like booking shows or starting a band, starting a record label. It's just like, just do it. So I feel like the same applies if like I've played in bands with people, like I grew up playing guitar my whole life. So it's like, it took some bands for me to realize like, hey, this person actually doesn't need to know this instrument to play this role in the band. But I feel like the dedication to actually make it happen is the sauce to actually like do it. So I would say to all your friends who were like, oh yeah, when I learned to play,
I
you don't
know,
even have to buy a drum set. You like literally find someone who can like lend you the drums and then just go from there.
straight up, like, this sounds a little mean, but there's so many people in hardcore that talent is not the thing that was not a prerequisite. Like, just pick it up. Like, just have fun, because like I'll be like, oh, I want to play this. Like, this sounds great, and then I'll like look at like the tab or like somebody playing it, and because I'm no virtuoso, like I'm gonna Google it, and it's just like the same three things, and I'm like, like, let's go. Like, I just think it's funny. Like,
yeah, I just think it's like, it's just like start today, just like pick it up, get what you can, and don't like hardcore. I think to me is always about not embracing being fancy, whether that's like the types of shows that you're playing, the types of like, you don't give a fuck about the bands that you're playing with, you just want to play, people's skill. Like I love, and this is speaking as someone who like archives shows and like film shows a lot in addition to doing this podcast, but I love seeing the growth and development of bands. The first time I filmed them to like,
yeah,
4 or 5 years later, it's like that guitarist of that band is off and now doing something else, and it's like that is so cool to see.
yeah,
for me specifically, for sure.
no, I love watching like Hate 5-6 sets and just going like one from like 2015 and then one from like last year,
Right.
seeing the difference in their performance ability, their crowd reaction. It's so cool.
Yeah, like I think one of the craziest like comparisons that I saw, like specifically on what you were saying with Sunny, I don't think he filmed the first set, but it was like one of the earliest like Code Orange Kids sets.
Oh yeah.
And it's like at some fest, and like the bass player's got, anyone who's seen this video would know what I'm talking about. But he had like a rainbow strap. It was just like he's wearing like the white wife beater with the rainbow strap, and he's just doing his thing,
looking good.
But yeah, it's like it's just crazy to see that, and then fast forward 5 years into the behemoth of a band that they
oh
are
yeah
now.
Like seeing that, like, this is hardcore set from, what was that, 2019, seeing videos of the freaking like Coachella sets, like,
right. Yeah, and I think like, I don't know, that's always a reminder for me, is that like good things in life in general take time, and whether that's playing in a band, whether that's like doing a record label, there are certain moments, I'm sure, for Code Orange or any band where it's like, oh, this is like, instead of like a small step up, it's like more of a leap, because, or like, we took this like little elevator because of this moment in this band's career. But most bands need at least 5 years in their like career to even potentially be there. Like seeing Drain kill it right now is like,
I love Drain.
Super cool, because like flashback in 2016 again, like they were just a band that was like hungry and were just going out and doing like small shows, small runs. I got to see them when they played in Canada for the first time in 2019, and like I was just like, this band is gonna be something, and now like it's just like set for beach domination, with
oh my god, they're just so good. Like their music just gets me just like smiling. I'm just having a good time.
Yeah. So let's get back on the rails as far as like talking about Ankle-Biter stuff, but like I'm enjoying the chat so far. So there's the moment with Knock Loose, you make the tweet, and again, it didn't sound like you were expecting anything to actually happen.
Oh
from
no,
that.
not at all. I was expecting everybody to be like, "Shut up!" Like, good God, 'cause that's usually the reaction to most of my tweets.
Sure. Okay.
Because my tweets are awful. That's what I'm here for.
So,
But
like,
yeah.
So when you like, how did it happen? Were you just getting a couple responses and then you realize like, oh, like shit, like I need to either buck up or shut up? Like, what was the process there?
What happened was, I think I had vaguely mentioned it to our bassist L, in passing, because we were never like super close, because all three of them live up in New England and I'm in New Jersey, so that's like at least 4 hours. Like it's still the Northeast, but it's a trek.
Yeah.
Like we have to go through all of Connecticut, and Connecticut's bigger than it looks. So it takes a while. So I never saw Elle a ton, but I remember we all went to the One Step Closer release show. All 4 of us were actually there. This is way before the tweet. I think I tweeted that in January.
Was that the show in the fire hall?
Yes, the show in the firehouse.
Okay. I'm time stamping it there. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was sometime in November.
Ooh,
1 sec.
No.
There we go.
You're okay.
And I remember just like saying as a joke, like that had to have been my third like "Who wants to play music with me" tweet.
Sure.
But like I think that one was my most explicit, like play in a band with me. Like but I remember Elle was like, because they had been in a band for a while that had really good reception. Like they fronted a band for a while. And they were like, I want to play hardcore. Like I want to take a very different leap from what I did. And they're super musically talented. And I was like, listen, like we should do this. And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And they didn't even like claim an instrument yet. Like they were just like, sure, I'll do it with you. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of like been on that. And so that's when I tweeted like, and then like a couple months later, I was just like, yeah, who wants to play music with me? And Elle, I think I actually sent them the tweet. And our friend Evan replied, who's in Broken Vow and currently on tour with Dare, actually. And he was like, what are you waiting for? I'm right here. Like, I love being in 800 bands. It like sounded like a joke. And then he just like texted me like an audio file. And he was like, thoughts? And I was like, what is it? And it was the skeleton for like My Creator, which is the last song on our demo.
Okay.
And I was like, shit, this is fun. I'm like, he was like, oh, I just had it laying around. Like, let's do this. And I was like, what do you mean you just had it laying around? He was like, he will just like go on like GarageBand and just like make or something like that and just like make drum beats, and then he'll like just play his guitars over it and then just send me stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll like all work on it. And I was like, holy shit, you're serious? He was like, I told you, like, because he was like, what kind of hardcore you want to play? And I was like, fast. I think fast would be fun. And then he was like, I've been wanting to do a fast hardcore band for so long, like a stupid hardcore band. And then he sent me that demo. And I was like, this is awesome. And then we made a group chat with Elle. We were like, are we ever going to find a drummer? And then he was like, oh, let's just text Nick, who Elle and I like vaguely knew and is like best friends with Evan.
Okay.
And he was like, Evan's probably not going to, there we go, I'm getting them mixed up now. Evan was like, Nick's probably not going to be too keen on it, but like he can at least like help us like write stuff. I was like, okay. And Nick was like, I absolutely want to do this band. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I didn't expect him to say that. And we had like a Twitter formed band. And we were like, okay, now what?
Right.
So we had a bunch of demos we were going back and forth with and like editing and writing lyrics, whatever. And we were like most of the way there. And then we get a text from the drummer of Broken Vow, Max, who also fronts Montclair. And he was like, Montclair's doing a show in Providence, Rhode Island, where both Evan and Nick live. Does Ankle-Biter want to play it? And we were like, we hadn't announced this band or anything,
right,
which was really funny. And we took it. So we were like, I guess we have to announce this band. And then we were suddenly the band who was overhyped with no music for like 3 months. So
Yeah.
It was gonna be like a
because you made
secret.
the first, I guess, like quote unquote announcement about that. I think it was like in March, and
Yeah,
then
when we had to announce the show, and actually in the tweet I spelled the band name wrong,
you did
which
you spelled the pen.
I wrote like ANKLEBITER or something,
That
and
is
I didn't even
so
know
funny.
until my friend texted me. She was like, "That was really funny that you did that. Like, that was like a good joke." And I'm like, "I did what?" Oh,
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot that I want to unpack there. The first just being, yeah, like a lot of people. I feel like I have seen the do's and don'ts of like how to actually like form a band. You know, like someone will make like the fucking like Craigslist post, like looking for, and it's like it's really not that. It's
I think we followed every don't
yeah,
as
yeah,
a
exactly.
band.
But like I
I think
really
that's
think
we've
that
done
it's
it for
like
all of
if
it.
you're like how my band formed was like three of our original members all going to, I mentioned seeing Drain in Canada for the first time. It was in Vancouver. And like, I think it was like the last day of the fest. We're all standing around and we're all from Calgary. And we're like, man, like Remy wants to start a band. Wolfgang wants to start a band. I want to start a band. And then like, how did it happen that we had to go to a completely different part of the country to like all realize us in our local sphere? But like I feel like when you're at a fest you kind of get on like a hardcore high for a little, like for the
Yeah.
few days after, and then you're just like,
Oh,
let's
absolutely.
fucking do this. And that could be at a big show like the One Step Closer one that you were saying. And then yeah, like things just serendipitously just started to fall into place, it seemed.
Oh yeah. No, it's awesome how that works. Like, like 8 people that are qualified and want to start a band, and you're just like, nobody wants to play music with me. Like,
Yeah. But so is this the very first band that you've like, definitely the first band that you fronted, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is my real first musical endeavor besides just like playing my guitar in my room for fun.
Yeah. So you were mentioning like when Elle was like, I'm on board, but it wasn't really like, okay, you do this and I'll do that. Like,
Yeah.
was there a thought about doing guitar or something? Or were
So
you like,
when we
I
finally
want to grab
all
the
got
mic?
when we all got in a group chat, we were like, because like I definitely had the thought where I was like, I want to scream, I want to scream, I want to scream,
Right.
but I was like, I don't want to sound like self-centered or like pushy. And then Evan's like, okay, I want to front the band. And I was like, all right, like, and I was like, but what if you played guitar because you have guitar talents and I cannot. Playing guitar is one thing, writing it is very much another. I was
Yep.
like, I'm not gonna be able to contribute to the band. And Elle was like, well, I think Elle first thing was like, I want to play bass. We're like, because they're like, I'm sick. I played guitar in a band for so long. I'm sick of it. And we are like, okay, cool. And then if I was gonna pick an instrument that besides screaming, I was gonna pick bass because I just love playing the bass. So I was like, that was taken. I'm gonna scream and Evan's like, fine, but you get a shot at this and that's mine. I'm like, all right, like that's kind of like our agreement.
Right.
We were just talking about it like last week. He was like, I'm so glad you fronted this band. And I'm like, listen, I'm glad you're glad I'm not sitting here after the demo release is like, I should have fronted this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. So, okay. So you figure out the roles, you start to do a couple things, and then this like show gets like put on your plate. So did you feel like that having that like be the fire under your guys' butts to like, okay, like let's finalize it and like get it out? Because I do find that like some bands, and I've been guilty of this myself, where it's like, oh, like we just want to get all these things finalized before the demo comes out, before we start playing shows. And again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, just going out and doing it and not thinking that you have to abide by like a certain rule or structure. But like, did that show help you like not expedite, but like get things rolling a lot quicker?
Yeah, so we had a couple like random deadlines in our existence. Oop, another cough. This is getting awful.
No, you're very quick with it, so.
We had a couple deadlines that made us actually get moving, which I'm very grateful for, because I think without a deadline, I feel like because everyone else and like all of us are so busy, especially Evan and Nick with their like other bands,
Yeah.
that like it would be easy for it to just kind of be forgotten about.
Sure.
And we first had the show, and then right before the show, we did our first and honestly to this day like our only practice. So I had to
Oh, because
drive
you
up
guys are
to,
so like spread out.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
three of
Okay.
them could practice all they want. I just wouldn't be there.
Right.
So I had to take like the 3-4 hour ride up to Rhode Island, and we practiced in their practice space, was like this old warehouse with like bullet holes in it, which is actually where all of our promo pictures were taken.
Oh, okay.
Like that spray painted wall is like where the drum kit usually sits. And we practiced there, and when we were there, we had contacted Will, who recorded and mixed and mastered our demo. We were like, when are you free? We're actually going to record it at the end of March, but that overlapped that last Eco Strike show, so we couldn't.
Oh, okay.
So we had to do it at the beginning of April. I think it was like April 2nd or 3rd that we recorded it. And then that was our second deadline. And then we were like, we need a deadline for release, which was going to be the One Step Closer show. And then we couldn't get it working out with Sunday Drive. So it was our like last string of shows that we did. And then before doing that, we had to get all of like our merch and everything lined up, and like that and prom core all lined up, and shows leading up to prom core, which I still don't even think are finalized. But so there's like lots of like random little deadlines that we had.
Right.
And we're trying to record our EP in September with Will. I'm pretty sure he's there in September, and I just want them to get a date done so I make sure I finish the lyrics in time, because I think that's the only way that they're gonna get me to like make sure it's done.
Right.
They're like, oh, we shouldn't like continue to rush things, and I'm like, it's been working great for us, I think. Yeah. So that's like kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, like I feel like I have my hands in a lot of different creative endeavors, and I think a really healthy exercise of like creating output is like creating some restraints. And whether that's like time wise, like I need to finish it by this. Like I know myself as a procrastinator where it's like,
oh yeah,
if something's due the next day, I like fucking crack my knuckles and off to the edit bay and like do all that. But if you're like, oh yeah, just get it to me whenever, like imagine it just never gets to you. So
yeah, I'm not gonna like, I'll get like little bits of progress here and there, but I'm not gonna like fully sit down and like finish it.
Right.
Like I just want that date set, and I know they're gonna listen to this and they're gonna be like, shut up. Like, but so that's my message to them, is to text Will for me.
Right.
But
I'm sending this message to you through the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very funny because it was a very similar situation for my band, my current band's first show, because it was like we were doing some kind of like show to help raise some money for our anniversary fest, which would have at the time been our 2-year anniversary. We're coming up. We just hit 5 years of scoped exposure like just a few days ago. But we had this show, and then thank you for the silent clap there. So we had this show, and then it was just like no local bands were available to play. So we had like a spot that needed to be filled, and like Endgame was like just starting. I was like, guys, we don't have music out, but we're gonna play this show, and we're gonna put us on the poster, and that's gonna be our first gig. And then it was like, I felt
That's
like
awesome.
that was necessary for us to get going as well. So I wanted to go back to one thing that you said as far as like you confirmed the show, and then you said that you felt like an overhyped band with no music for 3 months, which is
That's exactly what it was.
Which is funny because, like I got to film Promcore last year, and then, Endgame is now playing Act Like You Know, aka Promcore, this coming year.
Oh yeah, I need to keep up with the new name. I just keep calling it Promcore.
Yeah, anytime I'm like texting Aaron, I'm like Promcore, and then backspace, and then Act Like You Know.
That's exactly it. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's been.
But when we were talking about it, because Aaron's come on a couple of our podcasts just to like talk about it, and it helps that Ankle-Biter is like top of the list alphabetically compared to all the bands.
Right? Like in the middle of that first row. We're so annoying.
But when he was talking about bands, he was really excited about, like, he was like, "Oh, the demo's not out yet, but like, trust, it's gonna be awesome." So like, when you felt like, oh my gosh, like we're getting hyped up, I hope people like it, like what was going through your head through all that?
It was funny because I like just like tweeted out like we're playing a show, like this is my band ANKLEBITER, and and then
The misspell.
I the tweet had to be deleted because the band had to drop got like canceled and had to like drop the thing. I wish it was still there because that typo was funny. But like I just got a bunch of like crazy replies of just like keyboard smashes and like dogs barking like type like shit. And I mean we kind of did a little bit of it ourselves by being really annoying on Twitter, which we had to dial back.
Sure.
We was everybody but me. I'd like to say that wasn't me. I go on the record. I'm just gonna say it was probably all Evan.
Put the blame on Evan.
I usually put the blame on Evan. But because like people just see our stupid tweets all the time. They're like, "Oh, that's the stupid tweet straight edge band with no music."
Right.
And then our first show did surprisingly well. That people were like, "Maybe this band is good." I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell by that show because it was literally inaudible. And like the video, like you can hear like the guitar and like just cymbals. Like nobody could tell if we were good or not. There's just these Rhode Island kids that would mosh to anything. And people like saw that like we were starting to get followers and that like we hadn't even recorded the demo yet, and like Promcore, because they were still Promcore then, followed us. And we were like, and then went and followed all of our personal accounts. We were like, we haven't done anything yet. And like real people started following us and people were like, why is there like traction on this like essentially just like shitpost account?
Sure.
And so it did make some people mad. We got like a handful of subtweets when like we didn't even have music out from like people in bands.
Just because you guys were like,
because we were annoying and insufferable, it was like valid. We're like, I hope that they don't feel that way now that we have music.
Right.
But yeah, it was just like crazy. And then like when Aaron went and like followed the band account and then followed all four of us, and we were like, and then we tweeted him like, hi, and like tagged him. And he was like, hi, drop the demo. And we were like, and then I remember he posted like, hey guys, sending out like the fest offers today. And I just like swiped up and I was like, ANKLEBITER's free, just like as a bit. And he was like, you're gonna get yours soon. I'm like, you're joking. I was like, this guy's joking. And then we got one. And he was like, and he just like sent us like a schedule. And we were just like on it. And we were like also like, I think things have changed since then, but like we were higher up on like we were billed higher than we should have been for a band with no music. And I was like, any band that was supposed to play before the band with no freaking music, right. I feel so bad for it. I was like, put us on first if you're gonna put us on at all. Like I felt so bad, but I was like, this is real. And then we actually sent him the demo. My biggest fear was like, he's gonna be like, oh, this sucks.
And then
he's already in too deep. Like actually I retract my statement.
Right.
Like that was my biggest fear. But he sent back immediately, excellent use of tambourine. And we're like, oh, yes. Like, yes.
So I think the thing there that I want to break down is like, it's so easy to quick and jump on a band in an actual like mean way because of, oh, this band doesn't have music, blah blah blah, like demo first, blah blah blah. But again, it's like I think hardcore is in a time where it's like, if I think a skill in hardcore is knowing how to capture someone's attention, not even just in a live set. Well, live setting is just one layer of that, but like capturing someone's attention like online, capturing someone's attention like as far as like, you know, if you're doing podcasts or you're doing zines or whatever, like it's so, I love how many bands there are, but I know that it's like a constant fight for like, I can't tell you how many days in a row this year where I see one of my friends' band drop new music, and then it's like, oh, also these people are dropping new music that I didn't even realize. And then I'm like, listening.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, again, I love the supply, but I think recognizing that there is a lot of supply and that does drive demand, but it doesn't, supply and demand don't always go to the skies together, you know? Like
Totally.
I think the scene has grown for sure, but it's like, you know, I think being able to know how to capture someone's attention is key. And if that means like having a funny Twitter account or like doing something that again is driving people to there, I don't think that there's any, I think if you can, that's like the setup of the football, and then the music, if it's good, is like the fucking touchdown. You know?
No, I totally get that. I feel like we started on like tweeting our bullshit, and like the demand was like going into the negatives. And then we like played that show and like went up a little bit. We're like, what if we give you 5 minutes of music? And then the demand goes down the toilet. Like, like that's what like we hyped it up so much to literally give 5 minutes of music was something else that I just thought was really funny.
Yeah.
We finally played back the demo. We were like, we like it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't realize it was this short.
Yeah.
We didn't realize this was like 3 months of writing.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it's good. Like I think a good demo is easily, I feel like a good demo is something that you can have repeat like 3 times over and it doesn't feel old. I think that's what makes for a good debut of something. And
I like that take.
Yeah.
Because I love listening to things on loop.
Mm-hmm. Like there's
that.
definitely like some EPs where it's like, oh, I have listened to this 6 times in a row over the course of an hour.
That reminds me of when we did that last weekend. Our first show was upstate New York, and like that was like 5 hours from our drummer's house in Providence. So we were in the car for a long time, and I think we listened. That was the day our demo came out, the day that the No Pressure LP came out.
Oh.
And the show was the day after that. We listened to that No Pressure LP like 7 times in a row. Like, I mean, granted, it's short, but
right.
like we couldn't decide what to listen to. We were like, and then just started again, and we are like, well,
right,
it's out of my hands.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm ultra aware of how things loop as not only someone that like makes like social media content and podcast stuff for work, but also like as a musician where it's like, I want this last song to like fade out, and then I want the other one to have a hard beginning, or like a totally different mixture.
No, I'm with you there.
Mm-hmm.
I love like the concept of like a full album. I hate when people listen to a record but then they shuffle it.
Yes.
Like you're listening to that same group of songs, just do it in order.
Right.
Like I love listening to things like in order, like to an annoying extent. Like people are like, "Oh my god, shut up!" I'm like, "But these songs flow into each other."
Totally. Like going way back earlier in our conversation, you were mentioning like I would hear one song and then I would like torrent the whole album to like see if I liked the other songs. I didn't get like super knowledgeable on the torrents side of things when I was growing up, so I would like only get like maybe 3 songs from one album. So like there was a time in my life where it's like, when people would talk about Slipknot, I'd be like, oh yeah, I have like Duality and like these 2 other songs or whatever. But then it's like later in life, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's these other songs. And then that's why I've appreciated records so much, is like, again, like being able to have the full picture of what the band or the artists are actually doing. But then like seeing like, oh, like there's a reason that this song is in this track placement versus like, oh, just hit shuffle. And I feel like that applies for heavy music. That applies for like,
oh yeah,
like
it applies everywhere.
It applies everywhere for sure.
Openers and closers are just so important.
Yes. I also like how hardcore flips that on its head a lot of times, because like so many times, like we're prepping for a tour for a string of shows that we have coming up, and our drummer, shout out to Grant. He comes from like more like the metalcore world and like the post-hardcore stuff. So like he likes hardcore, but like, you know, we're teaching him a lot of things when it comes to that. And he was like, I sent him the set list, and everyone's like, and I put our intro at the end. So it's like, you know, that's a classic trope for hardcore bands. It's like doing the intro as your outro. And he was just so confused. He was like, I don't like, it says intro. I'm like, yeah, but it's the outro. He's like,
that's the point.
That's like, the point. Exactly.
I love that.
So yeah, like talk to me about, a question I had about the demo is the artwork itself. So I definitely like I saw the artwork and I was like, oh my gosh, because I've been following Abby's work for like a really long time.
She's so talented.
And I've never like, you know, she would do like a number of different shirt designs and like different commissions, but I'd never seen her work as a whole art piece. So I kind of wanted to hear the behind the scenes of like how that came to be and what was the thinking behind that.
So I think Evan had sent like a screenshot of something she'd drawn. Like we had all followed her, like we all knew who she was. There's like something she had done. He was like, hear me out, I'm gonna DM her. And like we didn't have anything written at this point. And then I was like, okay, let's go. And then he like sends back like, this literally had to have been in like February, was like, all right, like I DM'd her, she said it would be this much, like are we all cool with that? And it was like, and I would have paid her like 8 times as much. Like she did such a good job. And we were like, yeah, like I'll Venmo you right now, like whatever. And then he was like, no, it's fine, like don't, let's just go. And he sent like the most vague, like something a little chaotic, just have fun. She's like, do you have like any parameters for me? And he was like, no, have fun. Like, and she just she sent us this design a couple, like it was maybe in like the end of March or like early April. She sent this design of this monster that we ended up actually using as a shirt design on our first white tee that we did with the brown ink. It was like a guy, I can't fully remember what he looks like, but I think he was going like this and there was like drippy. She was like, what do we think of this? And then she was like, actually hold on, scratch that. And then she came back to us with another design like a couple weeks later, and it's the one that we have. And she sent it in like 4 different colorways, and she was like, what do we think? And then that's when we upped like the saturation and the brightness on it like intensely, because she had them like pretty like low key, which I thought was cool, but we're like, we're bold, let's go. And we made it all the way up, and then we had her X up all their hands, and then we were like, this is it. And it was simply like just that. We were, as soon as I saw that design, I'm like, I'm obsessed with these little guys. I was like, I love them so much.
Yeah. Like it's really cool. Like Abby and I actually go really far back. Like her older band was playing the same show that a band that was playing in many moons ago, and I think the band was called Household, and then like obviously she's gone off to do Life's Question and all that, but like randomly I shared something. It was like a Facebook memory, and I guess she was like tagged in it, and she was like, is this you? Because like I had not like started Scopes or like filming bands, like that was totally off of my radar at the time. So we got to connect like a little bit, and like to see her artwork is awesome. It's like that perfect blend of like colorful like bubbliness of like hardcore, but also having like the, you know, it's not like super scary all the time, but it can be if you want. So yeah. Shout out to Abby. I wanted to so I guess a piece of that was like, we don't really have much for you to go off of as far as like what we want, but like you at least gave her the band name.
Yeah, we were like, this is our band name. I think he was like, maybe like, we're like not really heavy, we're just like fast hardcore, like straight edge band. Like he was like, I don't know. He was like, if you can draw that, like he was like, I don't know. And he was like, I think he might have said like something that normally would be scary, but make it cute. like so like monsters, but they're like cute little guys,
Yeah.
like type thing.
Yeah.
Which she killed it. I'm just so obsessed with it. Like I will take any chance to say that I'm obsessed with the art.
No, I hope that you guys are putting that on as many pieces of merch, flags, whatever you gotta do.
That
to
would be
get it
sick.
out. So that goes back to maybe like a really basic question, and I don't normally ask people this, but like the name Anklebiter like caught my ear immediately. I don't know if that like came from anything specifically.
It actually did. And
Okay.
it's part of why we're annoying. It was after the Paramore song Anklebiters.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is arguably one of their worst songs, but like it's a good name. Because I remember we made jokes. We were like, when we finally were like, okay, fine, like Rachel's fronting. We were like in the chat, we're like, what do we name it? And then Elsa, something, I think it was Elle, was like, well, how long till we get compared to Paramore? You know, like how long until like we're Paramore too? And then everyone started sending like names of Paramore songs. We're like, how can we make this into a band name?
Right.
And then I think for a minute we were going with something along the lines of Crush, 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 like something from that song. We were like, I don't know if that would work, or that'd be like too similar to another band or too basic
like
or whatever.
too on the nose.
And I'm pretty sure well, somebody just sent like Anklebiter, and then everyone went, that's it. And honestly, at first I didn't even like it. I was like, whatever, we have time. Like if I end up still hating it, like things will change. Like we're just in a group. This is literally just a group chat. Like, and then after some time I was like, no, I think I like this, and I like it now. But yeah, at first I was like, is this really the one that they're all freaking out over? But yeah, it's as simple as we were making fun of people for the same people that would call female fronted a genre, the same people that would be like, oh, like Paramore.
Right.
So that was literally the whole bit. And that's why I think our bio for a long time was like, we sound like Paramore. And like we just like, and I think like when we were first starting, one annoying thing I did do on the account is I would like click on the topic for like Hayley Williams and I start like retweeting stuff. And Twitter just put in a new update where it'll show you like topics that you follow, and it'll like show everyone if you click on like the about on the account. So I had to go and follow like all the random topics I clicked on to mess with the rest of them, because I was like, it's gonna show everyone. I have to like I think I followed like Hayley Williams, Paramore. I think like because it would show me like recommended, and I just hit follow on all of them.
Right.
So it was like some anime, like Futurama, like random stuff, and we get like the weirdest suggested tweets because of it. It was really funny. They text me and be like, "What? Who did this to the algorithm?"
Yeah. What is our feed right now? And how did this come to be?
Our Explore page is ridiculous on Instagram.
Yeah, that is funny. It is very funny that like you saw like you said, the people that would call it like Paramore, and you're like, well, like let's actually use that as like a little bit like of a jumping off point, and then you discovered like a cool band name. I think that's very funny.
I'm amazed that the bit made it this far, where it's like permanent.
Okay, yeah. So you know, you brought up something, because I always like, this is me revealing a little bit of the behind the scenes of how I like to do these shows. Anytime I'm bringing on someone that this is the first time that we're speaking and having a conversation. So sometimes I like to message friends of friends to be like, hey, I'm having so-and-so on the show. Is there anything that I should like ask them that's as far as like interests or quirks or anything? And I've been told that you are a huge anime fan yourself.
Yeah. That was definitely something I was like very like anime and like video games and that dumb shit I was into in like middle school, and then like music became my main thing, and then COVID happened and music was like mostly taken away from us, like going to shows and stuff.
Right.
Therefore I reverted back. I mean, there was never a point in my life where I wasn't always playing video games, but like then I started like actually watching like anime again, and that's why there's like all that manga back there. All that. I'm assuming Lexi told you that.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, Lexi is a trusted source, I think, for this one.
Yeah. Lexi as well, huge anime fan. So we have like those conversations.
Yeah. When Lexi came on, we talked a lot about K-pop, and
so funny.
I feel very more educated since that interview. As far as K-pop is concerned, for sure.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
I love the correlation of like, who is it? There's a couple people like in like bigger hardcore bands or hardcore-esque bands that are like into K-pop. I know like Brendan Murphy's like the ringleader of like bridging that gap.
Yeah, I specifically got hit up by a friend of mine who has another podcast, and because Brendan's been on our show twice now, and he's just a dude. I was having a conversation about this with someone yesterday, where it's like there are people in like huge, bigger bands that like won't do podcasts or press unless they have something to promote. And I think it's just like, I don't know if it's 1,000% preference, or if it's like maybe something maybe within their like, I'll just tell the story. Cause like, I posted, a clip from when Vane played Calgary. It was the day before is when it was when their drummer Matt like broke his hand. So like,
oh, I saw those pictures.
Yeah. So all the drummers from the tour package that had Scowl, Touche, and Military Gun like helped filled in. So it was like Anthony had asked me to like shelf it for a long time, and then we just like finally dropped it like just last week, and it's like gone way more viral than I expected it to, and like gone viral off of Vane not even sharing it. So it's like it's just been going. And then
that's awesome.
I was seeing the notifications, and then like Frankie from Amir liked it, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, and
there's always those people that like your tweets, and you're like, where did you come from?
Exactly. Like, and I was like, I guess it's because this shit is going just out into the masses. So I messaged him, and he's like, I'm down to do the podcast, but I got nothing to promote, so like hit me up in a year. So it's like, and people have been, different guests that have come through the show have been because they have an album to promote. They have like this thing. But like Brendan, as an example, is someone who's like, I am down to literally just come on and just chat about whatever. And
talk about K-pop and my cat, like.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I had a friend who was like, you're way more connected to Brendan. You need to like reference him to talk about K-pop on my podcast. I'm like, all right,
that's so sick.
I'll have to send a message out. But we're getting a little off topic again. Going back to
I'm really good at that.
No, this is good. I'm really having a lot of fun. Anime. Pick an anime that represents each of the members of ANKLEBITER.
Oh my god, that is a crazy question, or I don't know, a prompt, I guess.
We're trying to tie all the worlds together, right?
Well, I know that Elle recently just watched the remake of Fruits Basket, and I remember when we played our show in Hingham, Mass, with One Step Closer. They had picked me up from the bus because I take a bus up to Boston, and they'd picked me up, and there were like 2 episodes from finishing it, and they had to like stop to come pick me up because they live in like the suburbs, so they had to like drive a little bit.
Right.
And they were like sitting there like ripping their hair out. They're like, I need to finish it. And they were like, but they were like, I know I'm gonna cry, so I have to wait until I'm home and stable. Right. Which like everybody cried at the end of that. Like, but that one just makes me think of them because I just thought it was so funny.
Sure.
They also were texting me because they just watched Death Note for the first time in 2022, which I thought was crazy. And they were texting me like they like live text me when they're watching stuff, and I just think it's so funny. So that those 2 make me think of Elle, but definitely Fruits Basket because I know they're more so into that kind of thing.
Okay, we'll give Fruits Basket to them.
I know
never
grammatically it's crazy, but yeah, it's like a whole like romance type thing, which are usually not my go-tos, but I watched it because it was something I read like as a young kid, so I was like, well, I have to. Oh man,
Jordan, Jordan might need to help tell me how niche these animes are, because Jordan's very into anime himself. So I'll let him chime in if he wants to. I put him on the spot sometimes when we're mid-episode.
That's really funny. My man's in the shadows right now.
Yeah. It's in the shadows. Oh, he just texted me saying nope. He's like, no,
That's really
don't
funny.
put me on the spot. Okay, so L
He
gets.
said, "I'm editing this out."
Yeah. He's like literally like, I'm cutting the feed. It's over. Okay, fruits basket, and then what else? And you have to pick one for yourself too.
Oh my god. Uh, so I don't even know if this is a show that Nick has seen, but it makes me think of him because when we were first thinking of like initial merch ideas, because our first one was like the Mario Chain Chomp. Shout out Mon for that idea. I did draw that shirt, but she gave me the idea. So
Yeah, that's a great
putting
idea.
that on record, probably gonna be my favorite thing that we like print for a long time. But we only made 15 of them, so they're like I hope they see the light of day again.
Right.
But we threw around the idea because Elle went, "Can we do an anime rip?" And I was like, "You're talking to me. Like I would love to do an anime rip." Um, and I pitched, and this might be more of a niche show, but I pitched the idea of doing a rip of the show Sergeant Frog, which is just like a stupid show, literally about like frogs. But like the art's really funny and whatever. And then Nick was like, "Yes." And like we still haven't fully designed the shirt, but it will happen.
Okay.
And I hope people that have no idea what the hell it is buy it and like wear it. And they're just like,
I
I don't know
frogs.
what this freaking thing is. Yeah, like I don't know what this weird anime frog is, but you know.
Yeah.
Makes me think of him because he was just so on board like immediately. And I genuinely and truly think he has like no context of it. He was just like, space frog anime. I'm on board, draw it. Evan, I straight up have no idea because like he's so far removed from this world. Like he's into like Western comics and stuff. Cause like his like bedroom is like his room at his dorm on the East Coast is all like comic books. There's like a ton of them, and I like don't read comics like that. Oop.
So would you have to
like,
give him like an American like kind of
like I'm trying to think
something?
of something that would remind me of him.
Right.
Definitely not a question I mentally prepared for, so the gears are really turning.
I'm putting you on the spot. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good at it.
Jordan says, give him One Punch Man.
One Punch Man is fantastic. I wouldn't call Evan like a big fighter superhero, but also I think that's sick.
Yeah.
I can't even think of something, so I'm going with what Jordan said. We're gonna go okay. One Punch Man, just in his honor.
In his honor, yeah, sure. Okay, and so the last one being you, I feel like there's probably a good one.
I'm trying to
maybe
think.
Too many to choose from.
Yeah, like So my favorite anime of all time is Soul Eater, and it's just like stupid stuff for like teenage boys, like stupid fighting, and then like, and there's parts of it that are just freaking absurd. Like just like when you think of like absurd things that happen in anime, it checks like every single box of just like sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'm like, I love this show, and I'm just like, what the hell is that? Like, and the reason I think I'm gonna relate that to myself is because everything that comes out of my mouth exactly makes me go like, what was that? Like, like the things I do, and I'm like, literally, what are we collectively doing here?
Right.
Like talking to myself. So that's how I'm gonna vote in myself.
Okay. So that's a good lineup, I would say. Definitely stuff that is not on my radar at all. Jordan was like, don't even call on me because some of this stuff is even niche for me.
That's so
that's
funny.
Good.
Yeah.
So I guess like one thing another thing, again, this is, this entirety of the conversation, we're like really breaking down like the initial beginnings of this band and like where Ankle-Biter as a band is going is like, like playing Act Like You Know, and I'm sure there's like a ton of other things that y'all are working on right now. But like, I think when I was like looking at your Instagram, it was just like so apparent that you were just like, you loved the music and you were like totally down as like, I'm this person who is just like going to these shows, stage diving in the crowd, doing these things, and now it's like on the other side of the coin. So like,
Yeah, which is crazy. It's a crazy transition.
yeah, and I think it is like this thing where it's like just a reminder for people like of how accessible this whole space is, and like all it takes is you just like making a tweet and be like, who's gonna be in a band with me, like let's just go, because it can just happen. There I feel like there's far more people in any scene who are just like down to help out people who they know are down, versus like having it be
Yeah.
this weird thing. So like maybe what's like either a piece of advice or something that you would say around people like starting their first project, like fronting their first band, like what is like the thing that you wish was told to you maybe even earlier on before the whole ankle biter beginnings?
I mean, like, definitely if you had asked me even like a year ago, like what I was doing, this definitely wouldn't be my first guess, and that it's even gotten any traction. So like the one thing I'd say to people that are like thinking about it is that like I said, I know we're like a very tiny band, but I'm still amazed by where we are. And that if I can be here and do this, anybody can, because I am like the least qualified person. Like I go to a lot of shows, but God, I am the least qualified person to be doing this. And like, so if I can get up there and actually get kids moving and like get streams on a demo, get something even put on Spotify, so can you. Like, and it's definitely like not looking for like this doesn't really apply in my situation, just because I feel like I legitimately somehow got three of the most talented people I've like ever met to play music with me. But like but this kind of ties back to what we're saying like at the beginning of this, where like you're definitely not looking for like the world's most qualified people. You're not looking for like the world's best musicians. It's awesome if you get them, but you're not looking for like these classically trained, insane musicians. You're looking for people that care about it, have that like hardcore mindset, because that definitely comes first to how bands sound in hardcore, and like that are just down to do this with you, that are like ready to go and excited for it.
Yeah, no, I feel like the mindset is the be all and end all. Like, because there were times at the very beginning where Endgame, like, we had a fill-in drummer who was just writing stuff. And shout out to Frank. And then we had a follow-up drummer who was like, oh, this dude's gonna be the full-time, person. And just did not come from that world, but like, was just, maybe an arm's reach away, and just quickly realized that like his outlook on like playing music and like writing music and how he communicated about writing music was like, oh, this is not the person who should be in these shoes. And then, we had to make that decision, and every drummer that we've had since then has been like, yes, because it's like we're not looking at skill, we're looking at like how this person carries themselves and how they communicate about this music when they enter the room.
Yeah. No, that's realizing that this world isn't for you like early on is probably better than doing something just completely out of hardcore character publicly and having to look like a fool. Like showing up to your gig in like some sort of like right-wing shirt type shit, like being like just executed on the spot. Maybe like obviously that's not like what happened with your drummer, but like that kind of thing where it's like you are just like excommunicated versus walking out is a very good call.
Yeah, I think what was the one thing that really, and this is me talking shit on him like fully, and I don't care.
Love
because
it.
like he's the only show that he attended. Okay, this is really funny because now I'm like actually talking shit. The only
I
show
love
that
it.
okay, I have to tell the whole thing. So he didn't want to write new music because he joined the band in the middle of the pandemic. He didn't want to write new music because he wanted to play shows. And like in Canada, we were really delayed on like getting back to normal, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, as far as like live music was concerned. Like we were, if not anything, like maybe 6 months to even a full year behind what like stuff was happening in the States.
Yeah.
So it was like, bro, like literally we can't even play shows. Like all we can do is write music right now, and if anything that'll teach us to write better music. And like I can't believe that I'm even explaining this to you. And so there would be times where I'd be like, hey, I like would demo out a song and send it to him and be like, hey, how are these songs coming? And then he would send a video back of him drumming to it, and like it's just a drum cover of another band that wasn't hardcore. And I'm like, is this a self-report that you don't want to be in this band? I don't know what's
That's
happening.
so funny.
And the only show that he has attended, because we knew as soon as we kicked him out, we were like, this guy wouldn't even go to any of our shows anyways. And the only show that he attended was when we were playing like it was like our first show of this year, and it was like a mixed bill show. And the headlining band was like this pop punk band, really good dudes. But he called me over, and I didn't even like register that it was him until like later that night. Cause like, you know, it's like loud and we're talking, and then I was
I've
like,
been there.
oh my gosh, like you saw our band, like be direct support for this band that you love. And then it was just funny that I didn't even like,
that
it
is
didn't even
funny.
register that I actually like played in a band with him. I was like, oh, this is some dude at a show.
No, I've absolutely been there, because I'm just, there's just nothing in my brain. I've had like full conversations with people, walked away and been like, holy shit.
Yes. I also now we're totally switching topics. I love how you adjusted your camera, and now I can see your Umbreon and Espeon like fucking like they're wearing like
I
fucking
realized my head
capes.
was cut off like the whole interview. And then
No, that's all good.
I'm outing myself for having Pokemon stuffed animals on a shelf.
Oh, like do you see the Magikarp?
Oh, let's
that's
go.
over here? And then there's also a Totodile right by this energy sword.
I love that. Johto's my favorite region, so let's go.
Okay. You're going to get me started with all this Pokemon talk. What is your favorite starter?
That's really hard, because I'm one of those guys where if you couldn't tell by like these, like it's very basic, but I do love the EVs, and like Espeon is my favorite Pokemon ever. That I usually will like have my team, and then as soon as I can get EVs, I'll like get a Bidoof, I'll breed the shit out of them, and then just make them my party. So I kind of ditch my starter. But if I'm thinking like very quick, I immediately go back to like my original copy of like Gold on the Game Boy, and I did choose Chikorita. The only reason, and I never choose grass ever, but only reason I did is because when my sister had Silver, she chose Cyndaquil, and I was like, I can't choose the same starter as her. And of course, I chose the one that would be weak to it, but like I was like, this one's cute, and honestly, it's the only grass starter I've ever fucked with. So I'm gonna go with that just for the simplicity of I love Gold.
So I think Chikorita is hella cute. I think Bayleaf is the best middle of those three.
Yeah, usually the middles suck.
Yeah, and then it's Magnium.
I think it's Meganium.
Meganium. Yeah, you are right.
Something like that.
I think is the worst of the three.
That's
fully
really
evolved.
funny. Like definitely not best, but like that's gonna say starter with the fondest memories for me.
Yeah, it was strange because so I had Crystal. That was my Gen 2 game, but my Gen 1 game, because everyone's like, oh, Charmander, Squirtle, like my bass player Dan like dies on the hill that like Bulbasaur is the best starter of all time. I'm like, you're a little
whack,
but yeah, a little whack, sus, but okay. I had my first Pokemon game ever was Yellow, so I had the game that you could get all the starters. So I was just like, I have no horse in this race as far as like.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, but then when I had Crystal and I had to pick, then I was like, okay, I have to go with the fucking like alligator. Like that just looks like.
I think all of them are very fair, like to choose. Like there are some where it's like, Gen 1, I'm not picking The other two, very valid.
Yes.
Like I'm so sorry to your bandmate, but like I'm not choosing Bulbasaur. Like I feel like he's just like, I don't know why I'm gendering it, but like it's very overhyped in terms of like I'm not using this. Like I'm just not picking any grass starter with the exception of Chikorita.
Mhm.
But like that's me.
I strangely, I would always pick, and I understand, like, I don't know, like looking back, I'm like, why did I always pick grass starters? Because like, especially like in the first couple of games, like it's just you get a fire type and then you're just like cruising through the first couple routes.
Exactly.
But I always like the design of most like I think
I get behind that.
I think Sceptile is like an awesome, like Grovyle, Sceptile, Trico for
yeah.
Gen 3 is great. And even for the newer games, I'm like, oh, the final level. And I think I got on like a little bit of a, well, this is what everyone is doing, so I'm going to do the opposite because
That's facts.
everyone was
Gotta
doing
be different.
firefighting, and that's the epitome of starters. I was like, I have to just do the opposite of that. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I think that's why I pushed.
No, I get that. I respect that.
Okay, so you brought up the evolutions.
Oh,
What is the one evolution that you? Because like I'm a huge Pokemon fan, so it's like here's all the concept arts for all the evolutions that don't exist yet.
Oh my god.
So I'm curious on if you had a genie bottle and you could create one of your own. What is like the typing that you want?
First one that comes to mind, I feel like Ghost would be so sick. I feel like that'd be so sick.
Normal Ghost Eevee would be
Like I
very
feel like they
spooky.
could go with like kind of the route they went with Umbreon, but like creepier, and I feel like that'd be so sick.
It would have
'Cause,
to
like
be
the cute and creepy thing.
Yeah, like it would be like an Umbreon meets like Mimikyu kind of
Yes,
thing.
like the kind of vibe that Mimikyu gives, where you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable, but like, aw, like
Yeah, you're like, but like don't come too close.
yep.
Because I don't want to see what's going on under there.
No, totally. Like, aw, like I'm gonna get out my binoculars. Look how cute you are.
Yes,
Like
totally. Yeah, that's very, very funny. I'm trying to get more Pokemon plushies because like I just need more in my life.
Oh, totally. I live close to like Manhattan, like close being meaning an hour. So obviously I go to like Nintendo World every time I'm in the city because I'm 5 years old. And I usually leave with some overpriced like Pokemon stuffed animal.
Right.
So I've got like a couple scattered throughout my room. Like I actually it's like right off screen. I want to see if I can show you. I have like 3 Espeons right there.
Oh wow.
They're sitting right there because I just like because my siblings went to Japan like right before the pandemic, and they just brought me back like whatever weird Espeons they could find, including this one bootleg that looks like so bad, and I think it's so funny. So like that one immediately like on the shelf, like I have to look at it because its eyes are like over here.
Oh man,
it's so funny.
Okay, so Rachel, one of the last things I can ask you before we start to wrap up, out of all the stuff that's in your frame right now.
I got a lot of stuff in this frame.
What is like the not rare, like when I say the word rare, I don't mean like expensive, like the wildest and rarest thing that you've acquired over the years?
I have some weird shit in the background. I don't even know.
Scanning for rare items.
Yeah, like scanning for weird shit. It's all weird shit. Like I have a lot of records on the bottom here, which are kind of cut off now. And like because I'm a loser, I take my record collecting seriously. So I have like a couple like crazy ones. But like I also have, oh my god. I'm like trying to narrow something down. Like
no, you're fine.
Well,
no matter what you pick, I'm sure watching this back, you would be like, "Why didn't I choose this? Why didn't I do this?"
I'm gonna be like, "Oh god damn it! Oh my god, it's gonna take some editing because I'm just staring at this." Well, I'm just gonna show something I'm excited about.
Okay, that'll work for me.
So me and Evan just went to, and a bunch of our other friends just went to Outbreak in the UK, which was crazy. And so they just did this alt cover of like the new One Step Closer record. because I know we've mentioned them a couple times,
Yeah.
and it's just like sparkly and fun.
That's very cool.
And I don't know how many it's out of because it doesn't say on the back, but it does say Outbreak on it somewhere.
Oh, a little Outbreak
Somewhere up,
exclusive.
yeah. So, which is fun because like American.
Yeah.
So, this is something I'm just excited about because showed up to the fest a little bit late on the first day because I broke my finger the day before. So, I had to go get like a weird British finger brace for it. So I was a little bit late, and I thought I was gonna miss this, but
Right.
my friend Jonah picked one up for me before I got there.
So
that's
you
something.
broke your finger while you were already out there?
Yeah, at the fest.
Oh, okay.
I stage dove to Fiddlehead, and I didn't land too well, but
I see.
it's worth it. I mean, I'm not too mad. It's my pinky. I'll live.
Yeah. I think I feel very spoiled as a Canadian with just having like free healthcare that like I don't want to fuck myself up anywhere else in the world. It's just thinking like the worst thing could happen.
When they were looking at it, because it's like the bottom side, which you can't see, is like very just like black and blue.
Yeah.
And when the medics were looking at it, just because just wanted them to like wrap it to this one, so like it would just stay stiff. And they're looking at it, they're like, "Oh, this is broken." And I was like, "Is it?" I don't fully know because I didn't see a doctor, but I'm gonna assume. And I was like, "Oh, like where can I get like a metal finger brace?" And they were like, "We don't really sell those in stores, so you'd have to go to like the emergency room." And I was like, "I can't afford that. Like
Right.
I'm thousands of miles away from home." And they were like, "What do you mean? It's free?" And I was like, blown away by that like
You're like,
thought.
eyes are opened.
I was like, "Wait, healthcare?" And they were like, "We forgot you're American." We were like, "You could have been Canadian when you were talking to us." So we were like, didn't want to make that assumption. And I was like, that is so crazy.
That's awesome. Okay, Rachel, a couple other questions before we wrap up the show.
All right.
What is a favorite mosh related story that you can tell? It's like a tradition that's like always the last question that I ask any guest. And that's anything that's like first to your head. Could be like, I was moshing and this happened, or my band was playing and then I saw this happened, or I was just at a show and I saw this.
Oh man,
whatever's the first thing to your head.
I've been in good amount of pits in my day, but I'm trying to think of some I'm gonna go with a recent one that I just thought was like, this isn't like a crazy story or anything, but it just like I thought it was awesome. When I was when we were at Outbreak, we went to the pre-show, which was the Counterparts headliner, and the pits were really weird. Like it was just like it was like a crazy breakdown, and people were supposed to be like beating the fuck out of each other, and they were like weirdly two-stepping. It was just like it was like a weird vibe. We were like me and all my friends' first British show. We were like, and obviously it wasn't like London or anything, it was Manchester, so like it was like wasn't like their city, like so we were like, oh, this is like really weird, like, and we were like, oh, I hope the fest isn't like this, because it was insanely stacked and 3 more days. And then the next day was day 1 of the fest, trying to sound a little less congested, and the first band on that day, I think they were the first band on there, the first band we saw was Year of the Knife, and this is obviously now that they have Maddie fronting on this run, which is awesome. Like, she's a good friend of mine, and I just love seeing her as a vocalist. I think she's awesome. They straight up were like just walking on the stage, and kids were already like side to siding and like beating the fuck out of each other, like of anybody on either side. And we were like all blown away because it was such a crazy difference from the night before. It was like 10 hours later, and we were like, and they were like, it was I think it was my favorite Year of the Knife set I've ever seen. And another thing from that weekend was we flew out like collectively because of that basement set, because we kind of think they're going to break up, and they're one of like all of our favorite bands who hasn't played a show in like 4 years. So we were like, yeah, that was the final straw, we're going. And there was a couple songs where I like stayed put and like was just kind of like in and out of the pit, but like I wasn't like in the air or anything. And a fun thing was I got like hit when I was like in the pit, and I was like, ooh, someone got me. And it was actually Daniel Fang from Turnstile, who was like in the basement pit with us. And I just thought that was so crazy because he could be side stage, he could be on all the balconies, and he was like actually enjoying the set in the pit, which I thought was just so awesome for like the next headliner who was on literally right after them. I was like, that's so sick. That was just like a fun thing I noticed.
Yeah, I love seeing like the majority of a band that is not doing the stage potato role, and they're like just moshing. Like I remember,
love it.
Yeah, there was one time at Wild Rose where Jesus Piece was playing, and I looked down and I was like, 3 members of this band are just like it's Aaron,
love it,
Anthony, and Lewis, I think is the drummer's name, and just like I was like, oh man, this is so sick. And then like, yeah, I think when I think it's also mandatory when a band shouts your band out that is like you have to mosh.
It's mosh time. It's mosh
it's mosh time for sure. So yeah, it's that's really funny to see. It was like, oh, I got hit by like Daniel. What's up?
Yeah, like
I'm gonna see your set in like a couple minutes.
Yeah, literally, like I'll see you up there in 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's
so yeah, it's just awesome. And when someone in a band that's playing is like a hard mosher, their band's gonna be crazy, even if you don't know who the band is. Like
yes, absolutely,
and
it is always funny when it's like a hard mosher, but then the band is like a little lighter than you were expecting.
Oh yeah,
it's like, oh, I was like, you hit me like you play bass in a beatdown band in drop A sharp, but like you play shoegaze. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's always like they're living a double life, or like you look and they're actually like have another band. That's crazy hard.
Right. Rachel, this has been such a fun chat with you. All of your links and Anklebiters, music and all that will be in the description, in the show notes. But if there's anyone you want to shout out, if there's anyone that you want to plug, or anything you want to plug, or anything you want to send the people off with before we wrap up, the floor is yours.
Just plugging that we released a demo a month ago. If you're interested in hearing even more of my voice, and I'd appreciate anybody who would listen to that. And just shout out the rest of my band and Sunday Drive, and also one of our supporters from day one, Tyler Short.
Yeah.
Big shout out to all of them, and shout out to you for having me. That means so much that you reached out to me to have me on here.
Oh, thank you. Of course. Yeah. I love being the first to have someone on, a hardcore podcast to talk about shit. And, I am really excited about the future of Anklebiter, and like, I'll see you in a few months for Act Like You Know.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that. And I've had the best time talking to you now that I know that you're a big Pokemon guy. I think we've got to battle sometime.
Oh my God, it's happening. Okay. Me, you, and Luke from First Day Out. We will definitely do some Pokemon shit.
I'm
at that
100%. My Switch will be with me when we're in Oklahoma. I bring it everywhere I go.
Okay.
Because I'm a loser.
Yeah.
So I will have it.
Okay. I might even challenge you. And I brought up Luke from First Day Out because when he came on, I knew already that he was a big Pokemon head. So I did the Gen 1 trivia challenge, if you can name the 151. We did that together on the show. We did pretty well, but we might have to do it in person.
I would never be able to succeed.
I've done 88%, and I'm pretty proud of that.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's dedication.
Rachel, thank you so much again for coming on the show. I'm really excited to see you in a few months.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I had the best time, and I can't wait to see you. And I know you'll be seeing our guitarist and manager at Wild Rose, because I'm gonna assume you'll be there. So
trip.
So yeah, I was gonna say, have a great time there. I don't even know what else comes through Calgary. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.